Welcome all. What a nice turnout. We sure appreciate your coming. This is the Candidates Forum for the 2010 City of Santa Cruz City Council. What we're going to work on tonight is trying to put together interesting set of viewpoints. I think that you'll find there's a certain amount of diversity here and lots of real smart people. So I hope that you'll enjoy this. My job tonight is to do some appreciations of people that contributed to this. I'm Bill Teisling. I'm the exec at the Chamber. We want to thank a lot of people. This is a collaboration with the Downtown Association. Here's Chip, if you don't know Chip, from the DTA, and the Conference and Visitors Council. And CJ, where you? CJ right here is from the Conference and Visitors Council. And we've put together a set of questions with the cooperation of a really interesting committee, and I'm going to tell you who was on that, in addition to Chip and Maggie and me. Carol Lezen, who is right here and who's also involved in the Harvey West business area. Cynthia Matthews worked with us, being our scholar of city issues. Chris Reyes from the Seaside Company had done one of these with Loba, and so he provided some counsel to us as well. Ted Whiting, who's here tonight, Ted's back in the corner, from the Seaside Company, is the Chamber's, on the board of directors of the Chamber and the chair of the Community Affairs Committee. Thanks to all of them. I think you'll find this interesting collection of questions as well. Also particularly want to thank Peter and the crew from the Santa Cruz Community Television. They're recording this. We will presume that soon it will be on the air and you can watch it again if you'd like. Anyway, thanks. And then finally, let me say thanks to Larry Pearson, who's agreed to be the moderator for this tonight. And Larry will steer and manage. So, Larry, much appreciated.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, candidates. So I'm going to sit here and read some things, and I'll be reading questions to the candidates and make the process clear as we go forward. Each candidate has been given approximately 20 questions to give short answers to, ranging from positively yes, maybe yes, to positively no, maybe no, and do not want to answer. So there are the short answers to those questions. Each of the candidates has been given a page that shows every question and how each one of you filled out that short answer, so you know everybody else's position. Also, for everyone in the audience and watching on television, if you're interested in the long version of the answers to these 20 questions, and there are some relatively long versions, there's a 40-page document. It's available online. Let me give you the URL. It's http://bit.ly/SC Candidates 2010. I would hope that the Chamber would put that link up on the website to make it easier for people to get there. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is we're going to ask 4 questions of every candidate. We'll ask each question. The candidates will give 2 minutes to answer in order. After the first 2 rounds of those questions, we'll have an individual question, which has been prepared by either the committee that organized this event or people in this room writing on their 3x5 cards. On that 3x5 card, if you have a question that you'd like to ask a particular candidate, write it legibly and indicate the person that you'd like to respond to that question's name at the top of the card. If you'd like more than one person, identify each of the people you'd like to answer your question. Those will be collected after the first of the questions that every candidate will answer. After that first question for particular candidates, we'll go back to a general question. And then after that general question, we'll have another specific question for each specific candidate, and then the final of the 4 questions. Here are the 4 questions that the candidates will be asked to respond to tonight. The first is, what should the role of the City Council be in supporting business and job growth? Secondly, As a council member, what will you do to help businesses and their customers be safe and feel safe? Third, what are 3 things you will do to address the city's projected deficit? And fourth, why should the business community have confidence that you will make a positive difference on issues impacting our economy? You'll have 2 minutes to answer each one of those questions. Are there any questions about the format before we go forward? All right, fine. For the first question, we're going to start with David Terrazas and proceed from my left to right down to Kevin Moon. The first question: the last 2.5 years have been economically difficult ones. The unemployment rate is still more than double July of 2007. Retail sales have plummeted. Employers from construction to education find it difficult to predict when business will improve. These conditions have great impact on the residents of Santa Cruz and local businesses, as well as on city government. What should the role of the City Council be in supporting business and job growth? David?
Well, former city manager Dick Wilson reported in his last budget message that we're going to be facing a $2.5 million deficit in the coming fiscal year. One of the things we can do as a city and as a city council member is to become a more business-friendly place to operate. Now, I've spoken with business members throughout the community about what it takes to start a business here. One who's operated for the past 30 years in town has told me that in the time that they've been here, they've never once spoken with a city council member or a public official regarding programs that exist in the city. I think we can do a much better job to help local businesses grow their operations here and create jobs. Sometimes it's not about recruiting new businesses to town, but it's about what we can do to make it easier for businesses that already exist here to operate. That's one thing. Another thing we can do is take a look at those businesses that are operating in town, and be a listening organization. By that I mean, we've had some businesses that have left the Harvey West area recently, Bell and others. I think we should be looking at exit interviews and finding out what it is about Santa Cruz that's causing some businesses to leave, so that we can look at some of our existing policies to make sure that they're reflective of the type of place where businesses can operate. And then also another thing I believe we should do is to take a look at the way our policies are reflected throughout the community. Recently the Chamber of Commerce did a survey that came out in May, and 2 of the highest priorities that they had there was public safety in town and the sense of the aesthetic and pleasantness of our downtown shopping districts. I think we need to take a new approach to how we invest in our local infrastructure to make sure that we are focusing our efforts to make our place as vibrant as possible. Those are just a few examples that I feel are important as a city council member.
Well, thanks for inviting me this evening. I think the City Council's role is central. I think the City Council should do everything it can to encourage business, to try to revitalize downtown and revitalize the business atmosphere. I think one of the ways we can do that is to encourage more job production for UCSC graduates. I think that we need to find places for them in green tech and high tech businesses and startups. I think we need to revitalize that downtown. And I think we need to encourage projects like the Project for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is a collaboration between local business people and UCSC students to get them involved in the community, get them involved in business. These are the people who are going to generate the next generation of ideas for Santa Cruz. They're the ones that are going to revitalize business downtown. They're going to want to be the ones who are going to use the incubation spaces, the incubator spaces that we can provide for them. For example, Next Space provides incubator spaces for young entrepreneurs. They can be there, they can network, they can build their businesses. I would propose to create a city space project, which is an expansion of that. Get as many people involved as possible. Get as many people involved in creating new business opportunities. In that way, we're not only going to be increasing our economy and revitalizing downtown and business, we're going to get people involved all across the board. I think David is correct. You know, you can't really revitalize business downtown without having a city council and the business community itself together, to be talking, to understand the strategies, to work out strategies, to see what they can do together to make this situation better. One last thing that I would suggest also is in revitalizing our entire business community is to have more green building in town. And we're not starting from ground zero on this. The city of Santa Cruz, in its wisdom, created a green building program in 2007. I would advocate to expand that, to get more business and to have local businesses do all the green refitting and green renovation, double painting windows, rainwater catchment systems. That's money in the community from local tradesmen. And I think that's the way to revitalize the entire business community. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. There we go.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having us here. I think all of us have been really on the campaign trail now for a while, and it's always a pleasure and an honor when people want to come together and listen to what it is we have to say. And I have to say, I'm looking amongst this room, and the way I answer this first question is active partnerships. And there's so many people in this room through the business community and people with small businesses like myself. I have Lynn Robinson Designs. It's a small organic design company, and don't do as much work as I need to while I'm on the council, but what I recognize is we have active partnerships on a daily basis, and that's what you want from your council. The minute I got on council, I just kind of hit the ground running. I've been doing it ever since, in the sense of finding out specifically what is it that might be broken for you in your business or in your district, especially with businesses throughout Santa Cruz, because we're very unique. We're spread out throughout 12 miles. It's not just one business district. And what can I do as a council member to make your business run smoother, to get a process that's broken fixed, or actually do something that lets you have a better connection with your customers? That's part of my role now, because I'm in a role of being the partnership with government with you. And I'll give you a couple examples of things that I've done. I think later on with one of these other questions that's more specific, because some of it does come back to public safety and some of it comes back to economic development. But the other thing I think is important, a role for the city, and we've done it while I've been on the council, is redevelopment has really been turned around now, and it's economic development. And I think that's a key piece to what we're doing in terms of visioning with you and moving Santa Cruz forward and being very vital and looking at opportunities, because we have a role to play as policymakers. You don't need us in your way. And that's one thing that I think is really important in my visioning, is like, how do we step aside and be your partner to make something happen instead of being your roadblock? And finally, actually creative incentives and future planning that we do for scenarios that encourage property owners to reinvest. So sometimes that's even helping people look at the land that they have with our plans and make sure they jive so that the landowner is the one that wants to move forward and we're their partner. That's another thing that I love working on. It's fun. It revitalizes Santa Cruz.
Now, what I think the city council's role is with business. Number one, if you're starting out and you are a new business, the city has to provide enough information and enough resources for you to start your business. Right now, I think we're a little broken into different areas, so we need to somehow consolidate all that information and make it easier for a brand new business person to actually have all that information ready for them. But one thing that I think a lot of people are forgetting is, what can the city do to promote businesses that are already here? And not just downtown. I'm talking about businesses on Mission Street, and especially businesses which I think are kind of neglected, which is on Midtown and on the east side. A lot of people tend to forget about these places, and as a citizen of this town, I see it as one whole city, so I don't really see the places broken down. It's all one place to me. So as to what the city can do, I really do think that the city has to use whatever resources, a website or a commercial, to help promote the businesses that have been here already for 30, 40 years. Some of these businesses are struggling already. And I think the city really needs to do a little part in it to make sure that these businesses stay afloat. Oh my goodness, I think I just blanked. I was going somewhere, guys, I promise you. You know, I'm sorry, I totally blanked. I'm gonna have to pass it. Sorry. Oh man.
Thank you for being here tonight. Now we're on? Good? Thank you.
You don't need that, Hillary.
My name's Hillary Bryant, and I am a small business owner in this town. And I think that Santa Cruz City Council needs to set the standard for how we interact with businesses. If we want to see our businesses thriving and vibrant, then that needs to come from the council. It also needs to be council working with our city departments and then working with our business owners together. It takes everybody having that conversation, whether it's a new business starting up or businesses that have been in business for a while, going in and asking questions. How can we get the city to work with us as business owners to make the process easy, whether it's starting or just coming in and doing some changes in our business? Santa Cruz has long been the sort of anti-business, but Santa Cruz is actually a great place to do business. It's all right here. We have a very highly educated population. 45% of our citizens have higher degrees and 18% have advanced degrees. We have a beautiful environment that we live in. We have excellent businesses already operating here. We have the university, which provides us with tremendous entrepreneurial opportunities. It's all right here. We just have to think about it in a different way. And I believe that that really does come from council and from our community saying, yes, we can embrace that we are a good community to do business in. And it will change the course of Santa Cruz if we decide that we want to embrace the idea of doing businesses here. It shouldn't be that 10 to 30,000 people are needing to drive over to the Hill to work. Why can't we keep some of those people here, relocalize our economy, keep the people in town, give them jobs, and it doesn't need to be big business, it can be small business, keep that money local, and that really comes from a message through City Council, I believe. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm David Foster. You know, for about 5 years, I worked for a program with a collaborative program between the County Office of Education, the Santa Cruz Community Credit Union, and the there's the Small Business Development Center at Cabrillo College. And what our issue was trying to figure out how to promote the development of childcare in the county. And what we learned was that a lot of childcare people didn't know how to set up their businesses. And what we came up with was a brochure on how to do it, step-by-step processes. And I didn't bring it with me, but we had a complete manual that would walk them through, explain to them what each one of the steps were, what process was, and what the codes were, and how to work through them, who the contacts were. That's exactly the kind of thing that I think Santa Cruz could develop that would help small businesses get started or understand how to make improvements or move forward with their businesses in Santa Cruz. I think another thing that we can do, that the council can do, that the city can do, is encourage projects such as the Delaware project that was developed. And basically the idea is that that project develops the infrastructure so that over time phased construction can happen in a much quicker, easier process where the environmental review has already been done, the infrastructure's there, the roadways are there, so that they can have a quicker and easier way of doing that. I think for the downtown area, we've got to solve the problem of parking, and to me, that means that we have to have a transportation demand management plan so that our downtown workers have different ways to get there besides cars so that the parking is available for visitors. And then I like the idea of clustered parking so that each individual parcel doesn't have to provide all of their parking. You can come, park, and be encouraged to walk 2 or 3 blocks to get to your destination, your ultimate destination. I could go on.
You can later. Good evening, I'm Ron Pomerantz, and I thank you so much for having the DTA, CVC, and the Chamber all together, and maybe next year try to get Lobo aboard, and then we can at least feel like there's a more compact business community. We can talk to everybody at once. So again, I'm Ron Pomerantz, and the City Council role that I see is first and foremost to plan very carefully, to make sure that we protect the physical beauty and the community texture that we all know and love, and I believe that's primary why we're here. So in the child parable world, it's the golden goose is Santa Cruz, and we want to make sure that that is preserved and protected. With that in mind, specifically, I would want to see the existing businesses supported and protected, especially on the east side. The Mission Corridor, the Ocean Street redevelopment plan is in the works. I think that will be essential as we move forward. Clearly, the downtown is our crown jewel. We need to have safety, clear, and promote the businesses and have creative ideas how to do that. And then lastly, on the far west side, the industrial lands, I would like to see those protected to diversify our economy and attempt to bring back good paying jobs with benefits and support a middle class through those kind of jobs. Whoa, 30 seconds. As far as the city can do also is public works projects that support a vibrant community and pay prevailing wages. In the Henry Ford world, he wanted to pay his workers enough so they could buy his products, and that's what's really essential here. We pay our workers well. They support our businesses. The RDA, the redevelopment agency, is really important. I would like the idea of an Apple store downtown would be really critical, fostering a climate of welcoming of small business and students. And I'll talk about that more later, I hope.
Thanks, Ron. Good evening. I'm Kevin Moon, and what I think the government's role should be in supporting business and job growth in the city of Santa Cruz. I do believe the city should be concerned with lowering taxes for business owners, small business owners, not supporting increase in taxes such as Measure H, which will go on the ballot in November. Measure H is going to increase the taxes for businesses, all except for the UC. This tax measure, I believe, is uncalled for and is non-creative and a knee-jerk reaction for the City Council due to their poorly managed budget. Measure H goes directly into the general fund, and I personally have a hard time trusting that these monies will be appropriated directly to public safety without having any accountability. So that's my first thing as far as businesses and wanting business to thrive, is keeping taxes down. We already have the largest sales tax in the state, 9.5%. Peeling back ordinances on businesses so that they can thrive and operate without government intervention. I will, on the council, I will be a personal liaison to new businesses wanting to come to Santa Cruz and match them up with land or commercial leasing spaces so that we can get them into Santa Cruz easier. And I will actually reach out to places and businesses like In-N-Out Burger. I love In-N-Out Burger. So that's basically all I have to say on that one.
Thank you, Kevin. With the second question, we're going to come back to you and proceed from my right to left, the opposite direction. Wish you hadn't said In-N-Out Burger.
You don't like In-N-Out?
Now I'm hungry.
Oh.
Hungrier than I was when I came. The second question starts, the polling of Santa Cruz businesses makes it clear that public safety and behavior in public areas are seen as among the most important local economic issues. The ability to attract retail customers, fill downtown offices, and draw tourists depends not only on ensuring shoppers, visitors, and workers are safe, but on our community's ability to make them feel safe. As a council member, what will you do to help businesses and their customers be safe and feel safe? Kevin?
Okay, this one's pretty short and sweet for me. To be honest, my family and friends don't come downtown very often to shop or hang out. So they just don't feel safe. I believe that the huge problem is the panhandling and the vagrants and the harassment that happens to our patrons and our visitors downtown. Without that being dealt with, I don't think that Santa Cruz downtown area will be a vibrant place as far as businesses, because if you don't feel safe in that environment with or feel harassed, I just don't think that things are going to work that way. yeah, I believe that they're disrespecting the business owners that are at the tax-paying base by panhandling and being down there. And that's basically it. If you clean that area up and get that, and obviously it's a bigger issue than just cleaning it up, but getting that mindset altered and switched to where it's not something that's tolerant or tolerated anymore. I think that's basically what needs to be done, straight up.
I'm currently on the Transportation and Public Works Commission. In that role, I supported improved lighting downtown in the parking area. Also, to clean the sidewalks, we approved a improved handheld street sweeper. So the cleanliness, the safety issues, I understand. It is our crown jewel business district. I have a background for 29 years as a firefighter, which as a public safety officer, I work closely with police agencies. So I have a very strong understanding of how to coordinate with them. So for me, there's the enforcement side as well as the prevention side. And I think there's an important balance that has to be maintained. We can't arrest our way out of a problem. We can't pass all the new laws in the world because we do live in a democracy. People are entitled to have safety wherever they are if they're homeless. So prevention programs are absolutely necessary. Keep kids out of trouble, keep them occupied, have mental health facilities, drug rehab facilities. And as a matter of fact, the RDA, the Redevelopment Agency, right now is funding a community service officer. I think is a great idea. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. If need be, a second one might be in the works, might be necessary. I would support that. Mental health workers also being provided. The HOST program is excellent. It can be expanded. And to encourage other jurisdictions to pick up their fair share of the homeless and vagrancy issue.
Good evening. I'm convinced that one of the best things that we could do for the downtown area is to encourage the development of additional residential accommodations and visitor accommodations. I think some hotels in the downtown area. The one that I love now is the new one, the Ocean Blue Inn, I think it's called. Did I get it right? Pacific Blue Inn, which is an eco-friendly inn, bed and breakfast downtown. Perfect example, get people to come downtown and find out that they can do everything without their car. And if we can encourage that kind of thing and bring additional vitality to the downtown by some additional density and that kind, I think that'll add vitality but also safety to the downtown. I do think that the new outreach programs with the police and the HOST program is a good idea, but I'd also like to see that augmented with an expansion of our homeless service programs to do particular outreach that's targeted towards the people in the downtown, the homeless in the downtown. I'd like to encourage the idea of producing a permanent site that's well designed for the farmers market so that we have a good place that's really set up for them and that can really be designed so that it has all kinds of different activities going on during the week that can draw people down into the downtown area. One last thing, I went 2 times. I went on a police ride-along and into the night, and what I came away from that was the idea that social services should be better connected with the police department. A lot of the arrests that were being made that night really needed social service people. They were drug and mental illness problems that could have been dealt with, I think, more effectively if the police had also had that kind of backup.
David. I also went on a ride-along recently and highly recommend that any citizen in this community do that. It's eye-opening. And 2 of the key components of my campaign are we have to keep this community safe Public safety needs to be a priority, and that's because I'm coming at that as a mother. I have 2 young children in this town, and it is crucial for me that they are safe and that the children growing up in this community and the youth in our schools are safe. But the other thing that I'm really an advocate for is promoting our businesses, because I think the two are intimately linked. I don't think that we can confront our current public safety crisis without having all the resources that we can to bring to bear on it, and that requires a thriving economy. The same goes for the environment. I think they're all connected. I'm a real systematic thinker, and I believe that we can't just isolate these problems and put them in a silo and think about them that way. They are all connected, and we need to work at them at as many angles as we possibly can. Our downtown and our beach area has to be safe for us to go shopping, and it has to be a great place to do business. That's one of the main reasons people are here in Santa Cruz visiting our town, is they're going to be in those 2 areas, and those need to be good, vibrant places for people to go. But in order to do that, we need to have enforcement, and we also need to have programs. That's why I worked very hard to keep the doors of the Beach Flats Community Center open, because I think these services are important. I think the teen centers are important right now. We need to have things for kids to do in the afternoon. I worked very hard to get the track and field at Santa Cruz High, because I do think we need programs for kids. But unless we look at all the different ways to approach this problem, and we do it as an entire community, not just as a city council or city departments or the police department or the fire department, our entire community has to work on these issues. The business community needs to participate, and we will find some real solutions if we all work together on this.
Okay, I do realize that there's a problem downtown with safety and cleanliness. Perfect example. My wife just recently got a new boss, and she lives in Campbell. And we invited her to come downtown, come to Santa Cruz. You'll love it. It's a great town. And finally, she came in and visited Santa Cruz. Following Monday, her boss went up to my wife, Rachel, and she goes, "Why did you invite me there?" And I'm like, "Why?" I mean, she goes, "Why? Santa Cruz is a great place." She goes, "I couldn't find any parking downtown. It was dirty. And when I kept walking down the streets, people, like grimy people, kept asking me for money." And I'm like, "Well, but otherwise it's a great place," she said, my wife said. And her friend goes, "I'm never going back there again." And I really do think that there's a lot of people who visit our town and never come back because our city doesn't do enough to keep our streets clean and safe. And I think that is a little bit of our, well, actually it's a lot of our responsibility. We're supposed to help businesses out, and to not provide that safety and that cleanliness hurts everybody. So as a city council person, I'm going to have the funds, we're going to raise the funds to make sure there are police there. And we're going to find a way to actually just, it's something as simple as power cleaning our streets. Because if you go to Campbell or you go down to Monterey and you walk down there and it's so clean, and we have something that's very similar, and we can have that. And yet for some reason we don't. And we're going to find a way to make sure that our downtown becomes as nice as those places.
Sorry, don't want to spill the water. Let's just go back simply. I'm just going to restate the question so we're all on the same page. As a council member, what will you do to help businesses and their customers be safe and feel safe? So what I want to let you know, many of you know in the room, because I'm seeing faces of people that I work with from the get-go when I got on council and even before, it's really, again, the partnerships we do with our law enforcement and actually with all city staff in terms of things. If you have a specific issue that's affecting your business or your business district, I'm one of those folks that just looks at what's broken and how can I help fix it, because you have to be a hands-on person. And if you don't have a council person that wants to recognize that these are very real issues and they would rather be doing policy making on some other legislative level but not at the ground level with you every day, you're not having an effective council person. So I hope that you recognize, many of you in the room and those that have small businesses, that's the council person I've been for my first 4 years. I'll give a couple examples because I'll continue to do that for the next 4 years and beyond, because it's just, I'm wired that way. I mean, Santa Cruz is just an incredible place for us. We've invested in our livelihoods. We've invested with our kids through public school, and it's a place that we want to continue to call home and be very proud of. And that's the work that I like doing on the council, even during economic hardships that we're having right now. A couple one that I want to show you are making already a difference. They're so successful, they're full. Neil Coonerty at the county level and then several of us at the city level put together with community members and law enforcement the SIP program, which is the Serial Inebriate Program, because that was one of a big draw of resources from law enforcement and the community when you had reoccurring folks that would not get themselves in a position no matter what we gave them. So we now have a program where they either really take the resources that we've made available or they have to find another community to do that in. It doesn't work in Santa Cruz. And we have a thriving program there, but there's a couple other examples is the hotel ID program I just put together. And I'll tell you more about that later, but that's taking care of criminal activity as well.
One of the advantages of being self-employed, and I'm a professional grant writer, is that I have a lot of time to go around and attend the city council meetings and the committee meetings and really talk to the people who are most involved in making our community more safe. I had the opportunity just the other day to go to the Public Safety Committee meeting, of which Lynn chairs and Councilmember Lane is a member, and I got a chance to talk to Chief Fogel, our incoming chief, about what his sense is about how to make Santa Cruz safer, how to make our businesses safer, how to make our communities safer. And he agrees with me that the police department needs to do more outreach into the communities. They need to do more outreach into the businesses. He's also training his officers to have more of a sensitivity toward what business concerns are, to what makes our downtown or anywhere in town where businesses operate safer. He believes with me also that these are the things that he should continue to do. On the city council, I would direct the police department to continue this program. He is also suggesting that we have a volunteer program where you get volunteers in the community, they go through police officer training, and then they can do low-level policing. These can be business persons, they can be retired business persons who have a true sensitivity about what business concerns are about safety with downtown, midtown, east side, anywhere. So he really has a good grasp, I think, of what the changing dynamic of law enforcement is, particularly in terms of how to protect our businesses downtown. And I think this is very important. Additionally, you know, I think what we need to do is support the hospitality workers downtown who do a wonderful job. I've been on several walk-alongs with them. They're fantastic. I suggested to the chief that when he's hiring, that if he has 5 positions to hire, perhaps he'll fill 3 and use the other 2 positions to hire 4 part-time CSOs, community service officers, who can be retired police officers who are not only familiar with law enforcement practice and procedures, but also have a sensitivity for our businesses, for our community. And these are the kinds of things that I think are forward-looking and what our law enforcement ethic and law enforcement dynamic is going to be. And as I said, I've had the opportunity to go and talk to the people who really make a difference. And as a city council person, I like to think that I would work in cooperation with them to really make the difference we need to make our business community and our community at large safer. Thank you.
You know, we have one of the most diverse downtowns, I think, in the state, if not, you know, the nation. When you look at the number of small businesses we have in our community, and many of these owners are right in this room right now. I mean, we have a unique place that really supports, you know, local businesses. And I think that rather than turn our back on the downtown, we need to really reinvigorate the downtown with our own efforts. And I look at our community and I see other cities throughout the state looking at outdoor malls like we have in our downtown area as models that they'd like to create. And I tell you, to recreate what we have downtown would come at considerable expense. We already have a true gem down there that I think right now needs to be polished with our own efforts. I'll have to say, I'd like to give some examples of things that I'd like to see. When we talk about you know, investing in our community, I think we need to take a new approach to investing in our infrastructure. I was part of a group organized by the Redevelopment Agency looking at wayfinding. And what that is connecting different communities through improved signage, through better directional information. People come to our city sometimes for, you know, either to go to the boardwalk or to go to the yacht harbor. I don't think we do a good job to connect our neighborhoods, to give opportunities for people to stay for multiple nights, to really have a true experience of all of the great businesses and recreational activities that exist here. Okay, he said time, but I'm going to keep going. The other thing we need to do is look at some events that are going on. If you look on the west side recently, Kelly's Bakery, which really transformed some businesses on the west side, looking at an old Brussels sprouts packing shed and transformed it into a really true neighborhood asset where people go to on a regular basis and say, you know, this is community we're building here. They bring people out there that may not otherwise visit our public spaces and look at the incredible weather and transform that into really a true public space. I think we need to do more to increase recreational activities and revitalize our town. Thank you.
Is this okay? Now we have individual questions for candidates, and we'll start with Hillary Bryant. In responding to the question, do you support the development of new parking to serve the southern portion of the downtown area, you said probably no, and said in your comment, we must work together to find ways to encourage and entice people to travel by other methods to our downtown area before considering building another garage. The question for you is, do you believe the total sales tax generated by businesses at the south end of Pacific Avenue is likely to be as great without the development of a parking structure? If not, what justifies foregoing this revenue to the city? And if so, would you advocate for converting other existing parking structures to commercial use? You have 90 seconds.
I can solve the world's problem in 90 seconds or less.
You have 85 seconds.
I do think part of the reason we own a business on the south area of Laurel, and parking, one of the real things I think we need to address in terms of parking is not just building more garages and adding to the parking footprint, but really taking a look at our downtown and figuring out what is going on with parking. I have talked to numerous owners who say, I don't know which garage I have to pay for, where do I have to go? People who are consumers and customers coming down there are frustrated with the parking system, and I can't find anyone who can give me a direct answer of this is our parking plan, this is why it's set up this way, this is how our consumers should expect to use it. So I think instead of looking to add more parking structures right now, we need to reorganize what we currently have, figure out a real system, and whether that's through signage, explanation, changing the fees, it needs to be a real plan instead of hodgepodge, 25 cents here, 50 cents here, don't have to pay here program. So I really believe that we need to take a look at our downtown parking in its entirety and not just start adding new garages here and there without doing an overall thing.
Thank you, Hillary. The next question is for David Foster. In responding to the candidate questionnaire, you're the only candidate who said that you probably did not support bringing the Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement Group in to partner with the police department in combating gang crime. Engaging with ICE was done at the request of the police department. Your question, what role do you think council should take in working with the professional staff of the city in general, and with the police department in particular, in selecting and utilizing means and tactics to carry out the goals established by the City Council? And it's a two-part question. The second part, do you support, and this comes from the audience, do you support police enforcement of the sleeping ban on nights when sleepers can't get shelter space?
Do I get 90 seconds?
You get 90 seconds.
Okay. I really do think that the city council took a stand and made a commitment to a sanctuary ordinance in the city that said that we were going to not collaborate, that it's not the city's job to act as the immigration services or to collaborate in that way. And I think other cities, including San Francisco, have said no to those programs, and the reason is that they are counterproductive in terms of they harm rather than helping our cooperation and participation and trust from the Latino community. The second one was about the homeless ban, and I just want to say
Sleeping ban.
the sleeping ban, homeless ban. That would be great. Wouldn't that be amazing? I went and spent the night at the Homeless Service Center. I wanted to see what it was really like, and I'd done the police ride along, so I wanted to do this as well. And what I learned was that the homeless service programs there is incredibly well run and very efficient, but it only serves about 20% of the homeless population that we have now. And that's during the winter months when we have the winter shelter going. So we have a real big problem, and we can't pretend that the homeless are going to go away. Again, 60% of the homeless population here comes from within the county. They lived here before they became homeless. So we can't ignore that problem and hope that it's going to go away. I think it's important that we, at the same time, protect our downtown, and I think it's legitimate to have certain areas where we simply say this has to be available and safe for everyone.
Thank you, David. Next question is for Ron Pomerantz. As you can see him moving down, then we'll come back to David and go this way. So it's not a surprise.
We can't wait.
In responding to the candidate questionnaire, you said that you would definitely not support a two-tiered pension plan and probably not support contracting out of city services. Do you agree that the current wages and benefits received by city employees significantly exceed those being paid in the private sector? If so, why should this continue? And if not, would you advocate for wages and benefits to be benchmarked to private sector wages and benefits and to be adjusted periodically to reflect competitive wage and benefit levels?
Let's see if I can get all the parts.
You want me to get the first part?
Yeah, do the first. Let me
All right. Do you agree that the current wages and benefits received by the city employees significantly exceed those being paid in the private sector?
Honestly, I don't know. Historically, public sector wages have been less than private. I imagine what's happened since the collapse of the economy to the financial sector, it might have reversed itself. But to me, it's irrelevant. Why are we racing to the bottom to pay our workers less money? It's the Henry Ford idea. You got to pay your workers well. They'll support your businesses, and they can raise their family and stay in our community. Make sure that they stay off the welfare rolls.
Thank you.
And there was more, wasn't there?
Well, if you agree with that
There's a
statement,
two-tier system. I'd like to respond to that.
if you agree that pay and benefits at the city exceed the private sector, you said you didn't know. So I think
Right.
you really answered the question.
Okay, but I believe you also asked me about the two-tier. Is that right in the first part?
Yes.
Okay, and I would like to respond to that. To me, that's a collective bargaining issue, and the reading I've done, the discussions I've had, it will not save the city any money for 10 to 12 years. It'll be approximately 1 to 1.5% of the salaried budget. It might save it at that time. To me, collective bargaining, you can save that money in the next bargaining cycle, in the next contract. There's no reason not to. I'm here to support, not to impose things on workers. That's the ability for them to fairly negotiate with their employer is absolutely essential. And once again, I don't think anyone would disagree that workers should be paid their fair wage so they can live in our community, raise their families, and thrive just like everyone else.
Thank you, Ron. For Kevin Moon. This comes from the audience. As a small business owner and member of the local LGBT business and professional community, I believe that our city's commitment to diversity and inclusiveness is essential, promoting economic development. The city has recently demonstrated that commitment by supporting the lawsuit challenging Prop 8. Do you support this effort to challenge Prop 8? And how will you demonstrate your support of an inclusive business community?
That's a crazy question. What is it? What Prop 8? What does that have to do with the business? I'm sorry.
You know, my job here is just to read these questions, Kevin, and someone here wants to hear your position on Prop 8 and how you feel about the city's position supporting a challenge to Prop
Well,
8.
I don't think that. I think diversity is a wonderful thing, and I don't think that it has to do with how you hire people or how businesses run in the city. I think that I personally have a diverse staff that works for me, and so I mean I don't really know what they're getting at, but I think that diversity is a good thing to have in the workplace. Yeah.
Thank you. For David Terrazas, once he gets a microphone.
Got it for him right here.
In responding to the candidate questionnaire, you said that you would probably not support either the creation of a two-tiered pension plan or the privatization or contracting out of some city services. This suggests maintaining uncompetitively high employee costs and significant layoffs or significant and currently unforeseen increases in city revenue. Fewer employee hours at higher wages would necessarily result in significantly lower levels of service than other communities. The question for you is, do you support such a strategy? If you do, why? If not, what alternatives would you propose to ensure that the service levels in Santa Cruz are competitive with other communities against whom we compete for tourists, jobs, and capital investment?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because I think that if you look back again at Dick Wilson's May budget message, and you look at the level of pay and the actual matching benefits they pay into that city workers pay into pension benefits, it's much higher than other jurisdictions in this area throughout the state. Now, that's not to say that we can't do better, but I think we need to take a really close look at our budget and where we can find efficiencies and tackle a $2.5 million budget deficit. The reason why I answered that question the way I did was because a two-tiered pension does nothing to address that. It actually pushes off any savings into future years. It also creates within the existing workforce different tiers of benefits that sometimes does not necessarily make for a conducive workforce. That was the reason why I answered the question. Now the second part of your question was, well, what can we do differently now that we're not doing to maintain our existing services? And I think there are plenty of things that we're not doing that we need to take a close look at. I was endorsed by Sheriff Wowak, for example, in the for policing. We can look at their volunteers in policing. They have a volunteer program in the Sheriff's Department where they have the equivalent of 14 full-time equivalent employees that are doing low-level police work. They're taking reports, they're doing vacation checks, they're also doing traffic control. These aren't city employees, they're actually volunteers that are doing that work. It frees up police staff to go out there and tackle the serious crime that's going on in our community. We need to do old things in new ways and start to look at our government services in a new way.
For Steve Plage. In responding to the candidate questionnaire, you were the only candidate who said that you did not support the camping ban, although you do support additional police presence downtown. Do you consider the ambience created by the behavior of some of the homeless and transient population that frequent downtown to be a significant problem to be addressed by the city? And if so, specifically what behaviors are problematic and what would you do about them?
Well, do I consider them problematic? I don't personally. I think that a lot of what happens downtown is a question of space. I think most of the ordinances we have downtown are based on space. You see the paving stones on the sidewalk on Pacific Avenue, they're 2x2. So you can't panhandle, you can't loiter next to an ATM machine. Well, that's 10 feet or 15 feet, that's 5 stones, something like that. We just don't have enough space, and that's what the problem is. I think we need to create more space. I have long advocated that we return to a true downtown mall, that we return to a true walking mall, that we mall off the downtown between Mission and Cathcart. Can't do it with the Metro Center because they need to get the buses in there. That we landscape in the middle, it becomes just a walking mall. We create landscaping, we create informational kiosks, we create incubator spaces. And then all the people who are loitering and panhandling and doing all the things that the ordinary citizen finds objectionable, they can be part of a renewed and revitalized downtown. We can make panhandling illegal. We can prohibit it. We can just make it a question of having the homeless people help us beautify and pick up the litter that's downtown. Anybody who goes downtown and sees what the litter situation is, in a city that's as proud as Santa Cruz, it's an embarrassment to look and see, what our streets are like. But if we can use the people who are downtown who are now have objectionable behaviors to do positive things, then we can resolve that problem. Downtown mall is the answer.
Thank you. For Lynn Robinson, in responding to the questionnaire, you are the only candidate who said they do not believe that the cost and inconvenience of parking in the downtown area are driving away customers? Do you believe that the current levels of cost and inconvenience to park in downtown play no part in customers selecting a place to shop? If you don't believe that, what are the trade-offs that justify the conversion of formerly free parking to paid parking and the increase in parking violation fees? If you do believe that, upon what evidence do you base your opinion?
So I'm just going to give you some answers here instead of having you rearrange some of those 3 parts. The reason I answered that I don't think it's ultimately a big issue that's driving people away, I've been on the council, so we've been at the helm of looking at some recreation of how we structure the downtown parking. We have the new paid parking lots. We still have over 600 free parking spaces throughout the downtown corridor alone, let alone other areas, because we have the same thing on the east side and on the west side of town and along the beach avenue, which down in the beachfront is where I think we're really also lacking some parking. Do I think we have some problems with it? Absolutely. I think the new pay kiosks are absolutely, we're trying to work as fast as we can to get the glitches out of there, because you see people lined up 4 and 5 because there's issues with those. But what we have and what we've tried to create is a variety of parking. You've got the blue meters, you've got 12-hour parking at very inexpensive rates. You have the 2-hour poles, which are basically the ones where people typically will get their ticket because they're not looking at what the time limit is, or they're thinking they'll be back in time. And unfortunately, that's the one that is the most painful for me, because I know there's people getting tickets. It's revenue for the city, but that's not how I like to see the city get revenue. But at the end of the day, that's the one that I think is the most problematic for your customer base, because you don't want to have people going downtown for a great experience and then come out and have a $38 ticket. The problem for us as a city is we don't get to control that a whole lot, because you've got the court systems at the state level adding on fees to that we cannot control. But what I do feel like is working properly is there is a balance. We have many free lots out there, we have permit lots for employees, and then we've got a mix of different price ranges so that people have an opportunity and an option to pick which one works for themselves.
Thank you, Lynn. And for Gus Abalos? You chose not to answer the candidate questionnaire question, do you support the implementation of the agreement between UCSC, the city, and the county, and others? Why didn't you respond to this question? And do you support the continued development of UCSC and the development of a strong and mutually supportive relationship between the university and the city?
Actually, you know what? I think that was a mistake, because I put maybe. I think it was like, what was it, yes or possibly yes? So I think that was a mistake. So yes, I do. Now, am I fully versed in the agreement? I'm not. But I think the UCSC campus right now is the #1 employer of the city. And for me to say I don't like that and I don't support that is absolutely wrong. I do support the college. In fact, I actually support the students a lot, which is one of the reasons why I don't like the rental agreement that the city just did, because I think it takes away a little bit of their freedom, their right to choose where they want to live. That means 5,000 students basically have no choice in living down here, and they're forced to live up in the college. So yes, I do support it. I just wish I was a little bit more versed in it, but I've got a couple more months, so I'll have more answers for you later.
Thank you. The next question for each candidate, for which you have 2 minutes to answer. In preparing the budget for 2010 and 11, the city's finance department projected a total negative fund balance, that is accumulated deficits, of $54 million over the next 5 years at 2009-2010 wage levels and current best estimate income projections, unless new revenues or substantial service reductions are implemented. This is an amount equal to more than 70% of the 2010 and 11 general fund expenditures. The question is, what are 3 things you will do to address the city's projected deficit? We're going to start with Gus, and then proceed in reverse direction, Gus to Lynn, and so on, and then back to Kevin, and ending with Hillary. Okay. So Gus?
Yeah, first thing that I would do would definitely take a quick look at our social services programs here in the city. You know, I'm on record saying that I really don't support the homeless shelter here in our town, not because I don't like the people. Is just that I just don't think it's right to spend about 17% of our city's social budget for some people that are not really, unlike what David says, are not from our city, not from our county. So that's why I don't support that amount of money for that program. So social services, I think, something we have to really take a serious look at. Number two, even in our own budget, we have to kind of find places where money can be better well spent. I think we're lacking a little bit of accountability in our budget. So I'm going to take the time and take a look and see where money can be better spent. So that's another thing. A third thing that I'd like to do is maybe look at some parks and recs or some other programs that maybe we can transfer over to the community so the community can somehow find funding or actually have leaders in our community to look for grants. So that way that the city doesn't really have to supply the bulk of the money. The bulk of the money would actually be given by federal grants or state grants.
Try to do this with 3 things. There's quite a few more than just the 3, but we'll start with the ones I think are important. I will continue to say yes to projects that really do bring in revenue to the city. I've done that my first 4 years, and it's been very effective for the ones that could get up and running. New Safeway on the west side, it only took 9 years to get that project finally up and running. The New Leaf, I mean, another community jewel for us, that they are just thriving there on the west side, and it's one of those rippling effects. The same thing that did happen with the absolute redo of Kelly's and the entire area there. It just brings new vitality, and that always turns into more revenue, which comes back to us in terms of just increased ability to help with our deficit, because you also get tax increases. The other thing with that, with La Bahia, which we are still waiting to see how that plays out, but that is over almost $1.5 million of revenue directly to the city through fees, taxes, and other resources that they will be paying to us, and it stays in the community. It also brings jobs that people are really waiting for, especially out of the surrounding neighborhoods. Also with pension reform on the forecast for us within the city, that is something we're just genuinely talking about with our employees. Having employees work with us to see what that can look like. There's no other jurisdiction in the county that's doing that right now, and I'm really proud that we are a council that will be doing that, and it will have an effect, because at some point you have to recognize that that's part of our deficit, and it is something that we have to deal with. Thirdly, we have done major cuts throughout the departments. I don't need to describe that to anyone here as candidates and people that have had to really help us recreate incredible things like Beach Flats, when we had to say that was something we weren't able to fund out of Parks and Recs. But the departments, through department heads and actually employees, still have another opportunity, I think, to look at other things that they can do that they're creative about and bring it to us. Will it be a huge decrease in the deficit? No, but every little direction you can do a deficit cut and really bring that difference down for us, that's the difference it's going to make. But ultimately what Larry is talking about is the long-term pension reform, because that's the one that's going to be the most difficult, but there is a cost savings there that is great, and it's exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah, I think the question is, what can we do now? What 3 things we can do now that impact our budget deficit as it presently exists? And one thing is to support Measure H, and I do support Measure H. I think that a 1.5% increase in the utility usage tax is fair. To also be fair, I would not take a 2-tier pension system off the negotiating table. I do agree with Ron that you're not going to get any savings for 10 years down the road. Nevertheless, it's something that we have to consider, even though it doesn't immediately impact our budget. I would advocate regulating our tobacco retailers, which Watsonville has just done. That only generates about $15,000 in Watsonville. It might generate a little more because we are more concentrated in terms of retail tobacco outlets, I think, than Watsonville is, so perhaps that's $25,000. I have long advocated the imposition of a cigarette litter abatement fee on per pack cigarettes. A 3% increase in a cigarette pack fee, 15 cents, would generate about $500,000 a year for the city. Those are examples of new money. We're not looking at how we can readjust our spending. We're not looking at how we're going to do something in the parks and then we can't do anything here. We can't do shifting money around. You know, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. We need new money to close an existing budget deficit. As simple as that. Those are the ways we can do that. So I would say simply that regulating our tobacco regulators, licensing our tobacco regulators, the imposition of a 3% cigarette litter abatement fee, and the support for Measure H would just about close a $2.3 million budget deficit in the next coming year. And that's new money. Thank you.
You know, our current budget deficit is unsustainable in terms of how we're operating. And we need to really take a close look at government as how we can organize to keep delivering valuable services, but in a different way. Now, I've spoken with city employees that work in different departments, and they've told me that they have, you know, multiple different customer service departments that handle billing questions and others. I think maybe we need to look organizationally at how we can be more responsive to residents in this community, just like businesses in terms of single points of contact, so that when someone comes to our town to invest their money to start a business, we make it as easy as possible. And I think we can do that as well with how we respond to our public, our residents that live here. Those are ways where we can be more cost effective in how we operate, but also to provide opportunities for business growth as well. Another opportunity that I have is, I think long term we need to look at innovative partnerships. UCSC is an untapped resource in our community. They not only educate the researchers of tomorrow, but they're doing the research of today. Communities such as Santa Barbara and San Diego have research parks, so that when scientists are looking at new technologies, they stay in those communities because they have their own facilities where they're maintaining the intellectual property for that, rather than it being sent somewhere else or maintained within the university. The individuals who are coming up with these new technologies can create the businesses of tomorrow right here in our town. The last thing I'd like to suggest is that we can look at our infrastructure to try and say, what is the type of infrastructure we can put in to be sustainable in our community? I have this idea where, if you look at some of our sidewalks and others, we need to invest in our neighborhoods to make them not only resident serving, but also visitor serving as well. And by keeping our dollars local and matching them with local homeowners and businesses, we can actually keep our money here and grow our economy locally.
Hello. Okay. Basically, what I'm hearing is like a lot of we need to do this long term and that long term and here and there. The city's out of money. There's no money next year. It's just not there. We need to do something. If you in a business situation, what you have to do is you have to lay off employees. So right now they're on furlough, so that can't continue. They do a furlough like on Fridays or something like that. So labor cost is the biggest line item budget thing that we have with the city. So what do? You tighten up your belt. You have to lay people off. That's just part of life. City labor cost is basically out of control. Or you can cut their benefits, or make them put more money into their benefit system. But something's got to give. They can't just continue paying everybody $1.20 a year to work here in Santa Cruz. It's just not sustainable. Basically, taking a good look at nonprofits. Currently, we're at 1.1 million is what we contribute to nonprofits. I did a little study on nonprofits that we give to in the city, and if the city of Santa Cruz stopped giving any money to any nonprofits, like let's take Meals on Wheels for instance. Meals on Wheels, if they didn't receive 1 cent from the city of Santa Cruz, would still be funded by the state and federal government by 98%. If I could run my business off of 98% right now, I would be flying high. But I've had to lay off employees because it's tough times. We're in the biggest recession that we've had since the Great Depression. So looking at nonprofits and really addressing ones that we really need to be putting all that money in there. Also contracting services out possibly in the city to private enterprise and letting them maybe do a better job at a lower cost. They don't have the high pension cost and stuff like that with it. As well as, last thing, I'll just take a look at the golf course. It drains us about $200,000 a year. So take a look at De La Viega and see how we can manipulate that to possibly be not such a revenue drain, as well as the municipal wharf.
It's an unfortunate situation, and I believe somewhat irresponsible for the current council to put us into $2.5 million debt. I do support Measure H. It is a temporary measure to help us pull out. It'll raise about $2 million a year. I don't agree with some of my colleagues up here that they're luxuries. Community services and community programs are absolutely essential, and they must be maintained, if not expanded. They keep kids out of trouble. They keep them off the streets. They keep them occupied. They give them belonging and significance, prevents violence and gang activity. Short-term, Measure H, yes. Prop 21, that's $18 a year vehicle license fee. We have lots of parks in our county and on the edges of our city that brings in tourists. It's ecotourism. It's essential. Prop 22, that keeps the state from pickpocketing our local treasury. If they hadn't been doing that over the last 10 years, we wouldn't even have a deficit at all. It was to the tune of about $2 million a year, so I support that also. Short-term, those are short-term solutions. Longer term, moderate terms would be having the ability to have labor and the city to work together in collective bargaining and figuring out where cuts can be made. That's about 2/3 of the budget. Another third of the budget is capital expenditures. I think that needs to be gone through with a more of a fine-tooth comb, figure where we can make some cuts in there. I don't believe our workers are overpaid, and we've cut to the bone. So I don't see that we can make any layoffs there. Long-term solutions would be the Ocean Street redevelopment, the riverfront redevelopment, La Bahia project. I'm an absolute supporter of, but not in the form it's in. I want to see that one get pushed and developed. The rail trail, I'd like to talk more about that. I don't have much time. That is also ecotourism. It's a land use issue. It's a transportation issue. West Side assembly jobs, and other ideas of Parks and Rec District and a municipal utility.
Good evening again. So I think that there is not a silver bullet that's going to solve our revenue problems, but maybe there's a silver buckshot that's going to do it. And I think we have to take 4 different approaches. One of them is looking at raising revenues. I support Measure H. I also would like to support some additional progressive revenue sources, such as a small increase in our real estate transfer tax. Now, of course, there is no constituency for tax increases, but there is a constituency for what taxes can bring to us. And I'd like to see taxes that are earmarked for a youth employment, youth empowerment programs for the city. And we have an excellent example of a summer youth program that I think could be expanded on. The second thing we need to do is not to put this on the backs of the workers that we have left now. I think further cuts to staff and to our programs that that the city runs are going to be counterproductive. An example of that is ignoring our green belt is going to end up costing us more in terms of erosion, possible fires, on, problems that we're causing by not being able to facilitate and monitor correctly there. The next one is facilitate. The city needs to be more creative with what they have. One of the things we can do is facilitate rather than actually run programs ourselves. I'd like to see a way that we can encourage more volunteerism within the community, such as a match requirement for social services that they have to provide volunteer time as a match to that. And finally, when we talk about growth in the community, we have to be very careful, because there's a difference between what brings revenue and is good for the city may not be always the same as what's good for our Think Local First program. A drive-through burger joint or a box store program may bring money for the city, but it's not helpful for our local small businesses.
Three things that I think are important. The first is I think that we need to have our city not be just a 4-month-of-the-year tourist destination, but a year-round tourist destination. We have so many amazing things that go on in this town, from Shakespeare Santa Cruz to our open studios, to the fact that we're going to get a new Marine Visitors Center, to our surf contests and triathlons, things going on year-round. We need for people to come to Santa Cruz and not just come for the day, but come and stay. part of the reason I was supportive of La Bahia is because I think that provides some economic drivers in our city, and it also provides for a way to connect our beach area and our downtown area and make it a real tourist destination where people come and spend their time and spend their money and contribute to our economy. The second thing that I'd like to see is for a real embrace of our local businesses and our entrepreneurial opportunities. I think that UCSC students could come and stay after they graduate and promote their new ideas and business and entrepreneurial spirit in our town. I was at a dinner on Friday night with a group that started up a small biotech company on the west side, and they're trying to develop a drug that decreases the effects of chemotherapy in terms of pain in patients. And they need to come and find partners in the city to help them find funding through the national government, but they can't find the right person to talk to. I think we need to make it easier for that type of business because it seems perfect fit for our community, a small biotech startup, and this is a great place to do that. The third thing is, as a business owner, I have some real concerns about how reactive we are in response to our budget. In my business, we have a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan for how we're going to go forward. And in the current economy, we probably have a 6-week plan because it's just changing that fast. And I'd like to see the city be more proactive in their budgetary planning rather than always reactive. I am in support of Measure H, even though I'm going to pay it in my home and my business, but I understand the consequences if we don't have a tax measure right now. And in terms of parks and recreation and other important services, I don't like the other option. So I am in support, but I know that there's challenges.
Thank you all. Now another round of individual questions. You have 90 seconds to respond. I want to start this by thanking everyone in the audience for their questions. And if your question is not asked, I ask you to direct them personally to the individuals that you wanted to get answers from. I'll start with Ron Pomerantz. And then we'll go to Kevin, and then see back to David, and then ending with Hillary. I'm sorry, ending with David, yeah. No, not leaving you out. Exactly. Sorry about that. So we'll start with Ron. In responding to the candidate questionnaire, you're the only candidate who said that you would probably not encourage our local member of the Coastal Commission, Supervisor Mark Stone, to actively support approval of the La Bahia Hotel. You note that Stone is a committed public servant and has done phenomenal work as a county supervisor, and that you are not going to get into the business of telling him how to do his job as Coastal Commissioner. Well, this raises the question of what you believe your relationship with your constituency and other political agents should be if elected to council.
Not quite sure what the question's asking me. My role as a council member is clearly to talk with constituencies, with electeds, with the entire community, business, environment, labor. That's my role, that's my job. In terms of encouraging or putting pressure, undue pressure, I'm not sure exactly how the questionnaire reading what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I have no problem at all talking with Supervisor Stone in his capacity as a Coastal Commissioner in light of the La Bahia project. I think that's pretty much, we have our local coastal plan. We want to support that and encourage that. And as far as going with, he has his role to fulfill on the Coastal Commission. He understands what it is. I can certainly talk with him about it, but as far as putting undue pressure on him, I don't think that's my job.
Thank you. For Kevin?
Here we go again.
Una más.
Good.
You did not respond to the question regarding continued funding of the Convention and Visitors Council. Do you support the CVC and its marketing program to attract visitors to Santa Cruz?
I didn't. I probably didn't answer that because I don't really know a lot about that specific thing about another program to bring people to Santa Cruz. I probably am right now leaning towards the situation of not supporting more funding for specific programs that I don't know. If I get on the council, I can see if they're working or not. Basically, maybe then take a look at it. But currently, I'm really in the mindset of pulling back the government and not having such a big government. We only have 55,000 residents here, so we don't need a gigantic government and a lot of taxes.
Thank you. For David? You express reservations about the improvement of the Highway 1 and 9 intersection and the widening of the Highway 1 bridge over the San Lorenzo River. Do you agree that this intersection is a significant safety hazard and a constraint on the economic use of the Harvey West industrial commercial area?
Well, you know, I've been the chair of the City Transportation Commission, and just if you look back when the water main broke and there was also a fatality of someone crossing the street, it's obvious that there are problems with that intersection. When the water main broke, I think traffic was backed up all the way to the city limits out on the west side. So there definitely needs to be a new look at that. Now, I'm not certain what that will look like, and so it has never came before the City Commission, but I know from business owners in the Harvey West Business District, we need to take a close look at that intersection because it's not functioning, and that is our prime industrial space where it requires us to, one, invest and have at least opportunities so that existing businesses and any business that want to go in there have access to that in a safe way where it's going to not impede the flow of traffic. But I also think that as a city, we need to look at new opportunities for infrastructure to kind of rethink how people get around our town, to invest and leverage our investment in infrastructure so that we can maximize the existing roadway we have, paths, so that we are looking at our scarce dollars and making sure that we're investing comprehensively. And so I answered that, and it wasn't reservation. It was just much more about looking at comprehensive transportation planning throughout our city, so that when we have scarce dollars that come from the redevelopment agency, that we're using them in a way that provides the greatest public benefit.
Thank you, David. And for Steve? In responding to the candidate questionnaire, you conditioned your support for the La Bahia Hotel project on reaching an agreement concerning union labor. Other hotel projects have been approved without requiring union labor and without any objection by the unions, most recently the Courtyard Marriott project. Would you require the use of union labor as a condition of your approval of all construction projects?
You know, I don't know how to answer that. My understanding of La Bahia was when they had an original agreement, it was predicated on the fact that there was going to be a certain percentage of union labor on the job. And my understanding is also that one of the reasons why that negotiation is broken down is that now they don't know what the percentage is going to be. But there's going to be some union labor, who knows what it is. Those kinds of things are part of my general learning curve as a candidate and as a council person. I don't think I can really respond intelligently and knowledgeably to it because I just don't understand the intricacies of it. One thing that I have learned, and again I say I have the advantage of being able to go to the city council meetings and watch the city council work. There are many things that they do that I don't agree with. I don't agree with their stand on the camping ban. I do agree with their position on single-use plastic bag bans. But I do understand that what they do on the council is complex, it's difficult, it's balancing the benefits and the costs of everything that they do. And one of the problems that I have seen them struggle with is union representation, is compensation for city employees, fair compensation for city employees, two-tier retirement systems, all those things that for me really are just part of a larger learning curve. And I really hope that as I'm campaigning and learning from the people who are on the council and people that I see at council meetings, I'll really be able to get a deeper understanding of these problems so that when somebody asks me that question, I'll be able to respond intelligently and knowledgeably and give them an answer that maybe they can understand as well.
Thank you, Steve. And for Lynn Robinson, in responding to the questionnaire, do you support the utility tax fee increase proposed by the council for the fall election? You responded, probably yes. You voted in favor of putting this on the ballot. What reservations caused you to respond, probably yes?
Yeah, and actually I was on the East Coast when that actually was at the council agenda. I was on the ad hoc committee. There were several of us, many of us in the room, that were really looking at our budget issues. And ultimately, I was one of the members that took it to the next level with Cynthia Matthews' leadership in terms of looking, what can we do? We've got to do something. So when we had both a professional that could come and tell us what the community pulse is in terms of what would be amenable, what could we do to close this gap, utility tax was really the one thing that had some hope. And our job was to look at what would that look like in terms of a percentage, what would be modest enough, what would people really be able to live with, and understand that our needs were so great in terms of public safety, which is one of the, I would say, just the absolute top number one thing that people are asking for us to increase. So while I am here to let you know it's something that we really need to have as a community and as a city, and I do support it. I do understand, and I think that's where you see my bit of hesitation, is that it is something that's going to be difficult for some people to be able to say yes to. And I don't want us to look like we're being tone deaf to that fact, because it's a difficult choice for people to make. It is more money out of your pocket to do that, whether you're a resident or a business. But at the end of the day, as a community together, we know what we're trying to do, which is really keep our public safety intact in every way possible. The largest part of our general fund budget goes to public safety by nature. We have proven ourselves as a council previously with Measure H funding that was specific to the parks and the roadways, and we were very, very diligent and did exactly what we said we would do. So the same thing would happen with this. We would be extremely, extremely careful with that money. It would go to public safety. Yeah. Does this go to you?
For Gus? When you responded to the question, do you accept as accurate the analysis that concludes that traffic congestion on Highway 1 has significant economic impact on the local economy, you answered probably no. Upon what evidence do you base your conclusion?
You know, I know there was a study that said that, you know, asking business people, they said yes, that it does affect their businesses. And I probably know I do respect that that's what the business owners think. But people still come to the boardwalk, and you know, they still come and they know when they go over that hill there's going to be a big traffic jam. So I mean, I do understand that business owners might feel the effect from something like that, but I think people that come over the hill probably are kind of aware of that fact, and so it's not really going to stop them. The thing that we can do is once they get here, you know, make things easy for them to go where they want to go. Like I said, like people have been saying, you know, more directions on signs. So if they want to go to downtown, you know, get some easier signs to let them know where to go. So that's why I answered probably no.
Hillary, in your response to the candidate questionnaire, you said that you would probably not support either the creation of a tiered pension plan or the privatization or contracting out of some city services. You further respond that contracting out services could lead to eroding livable wages and benefits. Please describe the role that you expect to take in directing the city manager in his negotiation of employment contracts.
I think this is going to be, of all the things, we go into running for council and you think, I'm going to do this, and I have all these great ideas and all these changes I want to make, and probably the number one thing that the candidates up here for the next 4 years and possibly even the next 8 are going to be dealing with is just that. We've come to this point in our economy where we're in crisis. It is time for some kind of reform, and how does that look? Because we just don't have the money to deliver the services that we want to deliver right now. And how do we want our city to look from here on out? And we're really shaping that at this moment. Part of that discussion is two-tier. Part of that discussion is privatization or contracting within or contracting without in terms of services. And those are significant, but I think we also are going to have to look at how we deliver these services. What services are important? We're going to have to take a look at our budget and say, what do we absolutely have to deliver? What does our city define as our core services? How are we going to deliver them? With what money are we going to deliver them with? And then where are we going to make the cuts? And it's going to be tough, but it's going to take concessions from every single person in this community to move us forward, or we're going to see things go away that we really, really care about. So I think that those are going to be part of the discussion for the next council, but I don't think that they're necessarily the entire answer. I think that we need to talk about consolidation and where are redundancies and how can we deliver these services as effectively as possible.
Thank you, Hillary. And for David, in responding to the candidate questionnaire questions about water and desalinization, you indicated that you were not confident that we had enough water to meet existing demands because habitat protection programs might reduce the amount of water available to the city. You also said you did not support the development of a desalinization plant, but would rather look to further conservation, gray water systems, and off-stream water storage options. Your question, are you aware of any credible analysis that suggests that such alternative measures would be sufficient to meet even existing water requirements in the event of a long-term drought without grave economic consequences?
I think one of the problems is that over the last 20 years or 30 years, as different options have been developed and looked at for the community for solving our water problems and for developing solutions for the drought periods, we've turned down many of them, not because they weren't workable, but because of political reasons, that we were frightened that they might be growth inducing. And I think we can go back and look at some of those, and again, it's not going to be one particular thing, but a combination of different programs that are going to bring an alternative that's viable and workable as an alternative to desalination. I think the greenhouse gas emission impacts of the desalination are simply not acceptable. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, that we may be pushed so far that we have no choice but to go for desalination while we look for something else, and that the long-term solution, though, is an alternative to desalination. One of them I'd like to see is an off-stream reservoir, so that we have the water available that can also augment the streams during the drought periods, so that our habitats can be protected in that way as well.
Thank you very much. The final question, for which you have 2 minutes to respond, same question for everyone, is here somewhere. Political promises and campaign rhetoric are the fodder of every election season. Really. This year, perhaps more than for any other election in our lifetimes, our skepticism as an electorate is tempered by fear and uncertainty about our jobs, our businesses, our neighborhoods, and the quality of life in our community. Why should the community have confidence that you will make a positive difference on issues impacting our economy? And we'll start with Lynn and proceed to Steve, David, and then over to Kevin, and ending with Gus. There you go.
And thank you. As I read the question, because they were sent to us, why should the business community? So do you want me to do it more specific to the business community or community at large? There's a little bit of a difference.
You know, I was given the words, why should the community?
Okay, and I'm happy to, because mine was really specific to the work I've done with many in the business community, but it actually is the same answer, and that's where I stand very proud and very confident in the integrity of what I did 4 years ago when I ran as a very grassroots candidate, never having stepped into local politics in any way, shape, or form. I'm still kind of amazed that I'm here doing it, and happy to do it another 4 years, because it's a huge commitment. And everyone up here knows, even on the campaign trail, it's a huge commitment to serve your community. And I'm very proud that every day, every week, every month, I do so much with so many of you. I can't even begin to start the list, but it's either because we're connecting with law enforcement on a specific issue, or bringing policy together, because you have to do it together. You can't do it in a silo and have policy that works for the entire community. Otherwise, you have unintended consequences, and that's not what we want to do as a community together. I stand proud in the things that I've said yes to, because I know they're very, very, very beneficial to make a vital Santa Cruz, which has always been my interest personally, and bigger than just my personal interest because of my own family and our desire to be in Santa Cruz in a thriving community, but recognizing that that is the beauty of our city, and there isn't anyone that would deny that, no matter what your diversity is about why you're here. I think that I sit on many of the boards through, whether it's the tourism board or the downtown management corp. I mean, there's a lot of things that I do in terms of business specific that I recognize we are at a point where we get to do some really exciting things about branding ourselves into the future. And as a council person, I make sure that we are funding those things. And I do say yes to things that I think are going to really catapult us, like the Amgen tour, which we know now we're not going to do this next year, but it's the right decision not to do it now. But doing it the past 2 years was one of the best things we ever did. We'll do that again when we can do it without it being a burden to the city itself in terms of the government and the cost that it takes. But there are community members out there that recognize those were some of our proudest moments because it brings a community together, and look, we put our best foot forward. I think those are my proudest moments because I do that with you, and I do it on a daily basis. And I said I would do that the first day I stepped into the role as a city council person, and I'm doing it now, and I'll do it the next 4 years.
You know, I think during the course of this campaign, you're going to hear a lot of discussion, a lot of debate about the issues of the day, the issues that are important to the people of Santa Cruz. And those are the issues upon which we as candidates have a duty to engage every voter, every citizen, to get out and talk to them. That's the democratic process, and that's the beauty of it. But I also think that at the end of the day, this election is going to be as much about leadership as it is about issues. I think that the voters of Santa Cruz are going to pick amongst these 8 candidates the 3 people that they believe are best able to lead them into a prosperous and a safer future. I simply tell you now that I believe that I am one of those leaders. I believe that it's my time to lead, and I am ready to lead. And on that basis, I would ask for your vote. Thank you.
Let me start that I've never served in any elected office, but I think I have a record of actually action in dealing with the issues that are facing our community. I mean, in my mind, the 3 biggest priorities we have are dealing with our current public safety issues, encouraging economic development in town, and then also looking at our infrastructure in a new way to revitalize some of our neighborhoods and downtown areas. In regards to public safety, you know, we've seen a spike in gang violence and violent crimes in our community that is really, if you talk with most people in town, has them really concerned. It's been a focus even of this forum in terms of businesses as far as what we do about it. Ross Newport's here from Community Printers, and he was generous enough to work with me to develop a public safety door hanger. This was in response to the double homicide that took place in Lower Ocean area. I translated and made available city resources, and with the generosity of Community Printers, we were able to partner with J.D. Sotelo of Lower Ocean area and distribute it to neighbors there and expand it to about 8,000 homes throughout Santa Cruz. It provides a reference point for people to call when they see inappropriate behavior in town and how to get in touch with city resources to do something about it. The second thing I've done is, in regards to economic development, is look at spaces that I think are blighted, that we need to freshen with our own energy. Sometimes in a time of declining city revenues, residents and each of us has to step up and do something about what's happening in town. I leveraged a city grant personally, and we put up a public mural behind Kelly's Bakery that's really transformed the area and made it much more pleasant for people that's walking and shopping in that area. And lastly, in terms of new infrastructure, as the former chair of the City Transportation Commission as well as the Public Works Commission, I've taken a leadership position on looking at taking some of our neighborhoods and put in infrastructure that strengthens our neighborhoods and businesses that are surrounding them.
This is it. So positive difference. What will I make a positive difference? I think I was a victim of a home invasion with my family on the east side of Santa Cruz about 6 months ago. And I will pledge to you and my daughters that I will make our city safe, and that will never happen to my children, and that I will never have to defend against a burglar in my own house, and that your children and your families won't either. I think this year is a real year to really do a gut check on where we're going. I've been on both sides of the fence. I was a airline pilot for 10 years. I worked at a union company I flew as a captain for 3 years. I have extreme and high ability to lead people in a diverse way. I'm a native Santa Cruz, 5th generation. And I think I bring a sense of diversity to the council that has not been seen in over 4 decades. I basically have a strong business sense, and I hope to inspire trust with the people of the city once again, and also to break the status quo, which is the council. Thank you.
You can certainly have confidence in me to make a positive difference. My history, my record speaks for itself. My life has been of service, 29 years in the fire department. I raised a fabulous family of 4 with my wife, Jane Weed, who also served on the council in the mid-'80s. Additionally, I have been involved in community organizing way back for a community health center, Westside Community Health Center. And for those that can remember, there was also a struggle to keep the Garfield Park Library open about 30 years ago. I was part of that. So additionally, I have been involved in the Water Commission, currently on the Public Works and Transportation Commission. I have been involved on the Site Council at Bayview. I have been a Little League coach. My roots and my breadth of experience, and I have broad and deep roots within the community. That's multiple communities. We are all one, but the parts are greater than the whole. The environmental, the labor, business, activists, educational, land use specialists, and many others, DLPT. What I want to say in conclusion, that I'm realistic too. I understand that we're a little microcosm. We're affected by the international and national world around us. To fix the economy, the repair from a $1 trillion war, jobs going overseas by the millions, a financial meltdown. We didn't do it, but we're most certainly affected by it. So all I can say is on a business level, I totally support and encourage local business. Their corporate headquarters are not overseas. You're going to stay here. You support our charities. You support our community. I want to make sure you are thriving, and that's why I'm a community member of Think Local First, and I am a bridge to the disparate communities within our own. And I thank you for your evening.
So I have to start by saying I'm local. I grew up here. I actually went to kindergarten at Laurel School before it became Loudon Nelson. So that's why you should trust me. I have a master's degree. I wanted to work within the community. I wanted to work with nonprofits, and so I went to, after graduating from UCSC, I got a master's degree in community development from UC Davis, and that was particularly to work with nonprofits. I spent 25 years working around the state building affordable housing and community programs, and returned to Santa Cruz to work with Mercy Housing. And I've served the last 6 years on the Planning Commission here for the city of Santa Cruz, and the last 3 years serving on their General Plan Advisory Council, which I think is critical that we get the new general plan in place and the new municipal codes that go with it, so that we can help make development easier, cleaner, faster, with user-friendly programs. I have, the last 5 years, I've worked as the Housing and Redevelopment Project Manager for the City of Capitola. So I oversee a $2 million housing budget there, and I'm currently overseeing a $30 million housing rehabilitation program for the City of Capitola. So I've worked with large budgets, I understand them, and know how to work with that part of it. I've served on the city's green building working group that prepared the city's green building ordinance, and to follow up with that, I also served on as an activist to help in the promoting and getting passage of the city's accessory dwelling unit and dwelling unit ordinance, and went on and built one of the first ordinance units under that program, which was the first straw bale granny unit in the city of Santa Cruz.
Thank you. How will I make a positive impact on our community? From the perspective of the economy, my husband and I are small business owners. We've owned Westside Animal Hospital for over 10 years. We know the challenges of owning a small business in town. We know the challenges of meeting a payroll, and we know the importance of delivering services to our community. I've also worked as a real estate broker. I know our community, I know our neighborhoods, and I understand where we're doing well and where we need to make improvements. From the perspective of our community, I have worked tirelessly in this community to try to make a positive difference. I've worked on Habitat for Humanity's board to find affordable housing for hardworking citizens. I've worked on community bridges because I do think the programs that they deliver are essential, from our littlest children to our oldest adults. I have worked on Santa Cruz Sunrise Rotary to try to find funding for a track and field down at Santa Cruz High, because I think that our youth need to have places where they can engage and participate positively. I've worked as a water polo coach, and I have worked to save the Beach Flats Community Center because I believe that that is essential to the fabric of our community. And from the perspective of the environment, I'm a Parks and Recreation Commissioner. I work to keep our parks safe and clean and open and available to our children, because I want my children to be in those parks and to be able to use them and have them preserved for generations to come. So Santa Cruz is my home. Regardless of what happens in November, I will continue to try to make positive differences in this community because I love this community, and I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to kind of put this to the business community out there. Number one, I respect you. I respect you because you took a dream that you had and you went with it. You used every single resource you have to bring something positive to the community where you live and that you love, just like I do. And that doesn't make you a business owner. That makes you my friend, and it makes you my neighbor. As a council person, I don't want you to forget that. I'm going to be there for you in whatever capacity you need. Now, a lot of you don't know me. That's fine. This is my first foray into public office, but things are going well. And worst case scenario, you're going to see me here in 2 years. And when that happens, I want you to remember me, Gus Sabalos. And if you don't do it now, maybe then you're going to realize that your vote's not going to go to waste. Because either it happens now or in 2 years, a vote for Gus is a vote for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much. I applaud your intelligence and the way you handled yourselves. Questions were not necessarily comfortable, but I think the result of that is that we saw how you perform, what kind of poise you have, and what kind of commitment you have to serve the city of Santa Cruz. I'm very impressed. We'll be very well served as a result of this election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.